Well, it's officially the playoffs. We've made it through 7 weeks of the regular season. I finished as the 2nd seed, and we're going to start the playoffs now for the Salty Dolphin Pokemon Champions Draft League. Let me pull up the bracket. So this week I'm going to be playing against Theo. It's actually a rematch of my Week 7 match. So last week I lost 2-1. I lost Game 1, I won Game 2, and I lost Game 3. I brought these 6 Pokemon: Meowscarada, Primarina, Talonflame, Frostlass, Beartick, and Cerulege. Theo brought Garchomp, Girafarig, Tyranitar, Typhlosion, Sinistra, and Corviknight. However, in all 4 games they actually brought Garchomp, Girafarig, Tyranitar, and Typhlosion, so they never actually brought Corviknight or Sinistra. I brought all my Pokemon at least once, although I don't think I actually saw any play with Beartick because I won before I even needed to take them out in Game 2. So this is my full team from Week 7. I decided to make a few changes, a few adjustments going into the playoffs now against Theo. The overall thematic change I've made is to try to make my team more defensive. I also realized that I had some coverage moves that didn't seem that useful last time, and so I dropped those and I made a Pokemon switch as well. Instead of doing the full scouting report like I usually do, since I already did that last week, I'm just going to go through the changes I made to the team, and hopefully these will help me for this upcoming week. Alright, so first is Talonflame here. I made 3 changes to Talonflame's set. So instead of having no item, I'm running the Focus Sash. I switched Acrobatics to Brave Bird, and I switched Taunt to Protect. So my general thinking here is that by having the Focus Sash, I can ensure that I can get off both Tailwind and Rain Dance. So probably like the first turn I can go for Tailwind, they might go for like a Rock Slide or something, and then I can get Rain Dance the second turn. Or if they have Tyranitar with the Sand up, I'll have to go for Rain Dance the first turn. Maybe I don't want to go for Tailwind if they are planning to set up Trick Room. But I think just having the Focus Sash should be useful. I didn't end up using Acrobatics last match, I don't think at all. Having Brave Bird is just an answer for Sinistra in case I need a quick way to take it out. I know there's a little bit of anti-synergy with Brave Bird and the Focus Sash, but I'm planning to, use Talonflame mostly for support, and having a priority attack I think is useful. Next up is Meowscarada. So I decided to drop the Koba Berry and add the Occa Berry. So the Koba Berry prevents damage from flying attacks, whereas the Occa Berry prevents damage from fire attack. Simple change since we didn't see Corviknight at all last time. And then I dropped Fake Tears to add Pollen Puff. So Pollen Puff isn't really to do damage, it's just another way to heal. Well, it's just a way to heal up my Pokemon. So I'm thinking that since Primarina is very important to my game plan and matches up generally pretty well into their team, having Pollen Puff there as a way to potentially heal Primarina might end up being useful. And I'm not sure if I needed Fake Tears, so that's the general idea behind that. Again, dropping some offensive power to get some more defense. Next up is Cerulege. Just one small change here, switching from Poltergeist to Protect. So my thinking here is that last game I didn't even use Poltergeist. I didn't use Poltergeist except for the one time it missed against Typhlosion. And I think just having Protect could be useful. I didn't want to drop Will-O-Wisp because it's such a good tool since they have so many physical attackers, and I didn't want to drop Taunt just in case it's useful to have a way to stop Trick Room. After that we have Frostlass. For Frostlass I made 2 changes. I switched Ice Beam to Weather Ball and Shadow Ball to Aurora Veil. So I dropped Ice Beam and went for Weather Ball. This can help out because if the rain's up I can use a Weather Ball into Tyranitar for super effective damage. If the sand is up, I can use a Weather Ball into Typhlosion for super effective damage. And then I dropped Shadow Ball to have Aurora Veil. So this is again a way to help increase the defense on my team. If I can set up Aurora Veil on turn 1, if they don't have Tyranitar out, then, I'll be positioned well defensively. Okay, on Primarina I made 2 changes. So I dropped the Mystic Water to add the Citrus Berry, and then I switched Moonblast to Surf. So I added the Citrus Berry just to give some extra recovery to Primarina. Primarina should still be able to do plenty of damage, especially if I have the rain up. A lot of the time it's going to be a 2-hit KO anyways, regardless of if I have the Mystic Water or not. And so I think just having the Citrus Berry to help keep Primarina alive will be useful. And then I dropped Moonblast to add Surf because last time I got hit by a Throat Chop, and I couldn't use Hyper Voice, but I wanted to use a water move. And so by having Surf here, I can still do a lot of damage with my water attacks, and I felt like Moonblast against Garchomp is useful, but that's really the only place where I'd want to use it anyways. And even against Garchomp, Surf is neutral, which, if the rain's up, is going to do a lot of damage. So the last change here is I switched Beartic out and brought in Tauros. So my main thinking here is that Tauros has the ability Intimidate, and given how many physical attackers they have, Intimidate can be extremely useful. So if I can get an Intimidate down, their Tyranitar and their Garchomp aren't going to be able to do much. I could eventually switch out Tauros and then try to get a second Intimidate down if I want. But this is just a really good way to decrease their damage output a lot, since they're going to be relying so much on these physical attackers. They also have Rain Dance, which is a way to help support Primarina. They have Whirlpool, which is an interesting move that will keep the opponent trapped on the field. I have Scary Face there so that in a potential Trick Room I can actually drop the speed of my own Pokemon so that I can underspeed and go first in Trick Room. Also in some Perish game scenarios, having Scary Face there could be useful. So Taurus's job here is really just to support the rest of the team. They're extremely bulky, they have no stats invested in either of their attacks, and the idea is that they'll just be able to take a lot of hits, support the team. So yeah, that's the full team, and we'll get into the match now, see how these changes end up helping me out. It's possible I definitely may have overcooked a little with these changes. This Tauros set is just completely silly, but it should be fun. I'm excited to try to do something a little different here. I haven't tried to play this defensively before, but we'll see how it goes. I'm excited for the match. Alright, so getting into the match now. They bring the same 6 Pokemon I'm expecting to see. I didn't have a specific lead planned, I had a couple ideas. I decided to go with Primarina and Tauros to start, and put Frostlass and Meowscarada in the back. And the idea here is to go for the Rain Dance and the Hyper Voice start up. And hopefully I can use the Intimidate on Tauros to get some damage into Tyranitar. So what I'm hoping not to see here is not to see Machagacha, or Sinistra, as a lead, which this lead doesn't work well into, but I'd be happy to see pretty much any other Pokemon. Getting into the match now, we see that they do lead for a Graph and the Sinistra, so I wasn't too happy to see this. Last time they didn't bring Sinistra at all, and I have good answers to Sinistra in theory, but Sinistra matches up well into Primarina. So I decided it's probably good to just swap out Primarina. I was thinking if I should bring in Frostlass or Meowscarada, but I decided Meowscarada is probably the better swap. And then what I decided to do with Tauros here is to go for a Scary Face into the Primarina slot. So this way, when they set up Trick Room, which I'm expecting that they'll set up, I'll actually underspeed and then I'll get to go first next turn. So I dropped my Meowscarada's speed. However, they go for Sunny Day. I was a little bit surprised to see this. I did think maybe they'd bring Sun as a way to counter the rain, but I didn't expect this. I also did not expect Solar Beam, and it does quite a bit of damage. I've never seen Sinistra used as an offensive threat, and I didn't really realize that it even was that strong of a special attacker. So to see it do this much damage, it was a bit surprising, though Meowscarada's special defense isn't that high. So now, unfortunately, my Meowscarada is really slow because I dropped its speed, which makes it a little bit awkward. So not the best first turn for me. I made a call that they would go for Trick Room, but they mixed it up. So they decide to take Sinistra out and bring in the Typhlosion. I set up the rain. And then I just go for a knockoff. And you can see that they have that Pasho Berry, so that means that water attacks, the first water attack won't do as much damage. So I decide to protect with Meowscarada, and then I go for Whirlpool. What we're going to see throughout this match is that Whirlpool was probably not the best move to bring to this set. It really isn't able to do too much. If I just brought like a regular attacking move like Rock Slide or something, that would probably have been a lot better. So here I'm like kind of in an awkward position. It's like, what can my Tauros really do? I don't want to use Scary Face on their Pokemon. I mean, I could, but it's not doing too much. And the rain's already set up, so I just go for Whirlpool, which is going to just trap Typhlosion on the field in the rain and get a little bit of passive damage. The Farigiraf goes for this Hyper Voice. Gets a decent amount of damage into Tauros, but Tauros is pretty bulky, so they can take a few hits. So I decide to swap out my Meowscarada, try to reset its speed, and hopefully it can do some more later. And then I'm just going to go for Whirlpool into the Farigiraf to get some passive damage in the other slot. So on this following turn, I do make a bit of a mistake. In retrospect, I think a very good option here would have just been to use Scary Face into the Typhlosion slot, and then just use a Hyper Voice. I think that would be completely reasonable. Another option I could have considered was just repositioning. I think that may actually be the best option. So instead of acting passively here, I could try to bring in another Pokemon. So they're able to get the sun up. And they bring back in the Sinistcha. So yeah, I'm again in kind of an awkward spot here. I go for the Perish Song because I don't really have a good way to damage Sinistcha, unfortunately. And then I decide to go for Rain Dance. They go for Sunny Day, anticipating the potential Rain Dance there. Makes sense. And then they go for the Solar Beam. So again, I didn't expect that Machagacha would be able to do this much damage to one-shot Primarina. So I hadn't prepped for that. It was a bit unfortunate. I did realize that this lead is weak against Sinistcha, and I should have potentially added a different move if they do bring Sinistcha, I think, because I did think about it. Maybe when I saw the Sinistcha there, I should have just swapped Pokemon. So I did think about going for the Pollen Puff to increase the health on Tauros there, but I decided just knock off is probably fine. And I decided to go for the Whirlpool there. Again, Tauros doesn't really have a great option. So the Whirlpool only does 1%. That's so pitiful. They only had 4%, and it's only able to do 1. That's a really unfortunate, because now they're able to get up Trick Room, and at this point it seems very difficult for me to win. I was thinking here about if I should delay using my Mega Evolution, but actually since we're in Trick Room, I'll actually go last, so I'll be able to keep the weather. So the idea here is that since we're in Trick Room, I can use Rain Dance. Tauros will move after, or before Frostlass, so that means when I use a Weather Ball, this should be able to knock out the Tyranitar. It probably doesn't actually one-hit KO it. I didn't do too many calcs for this match. I was just sort of assuming most of the time I'll have to use 2 hits to damage things, or to get the KO on things. So I probably should have gone for Blizzard here and tried to just hope I could get some freezes instead of going for a Weather Ball. Fergraph is going to perish next turn, but there's nothing really I can do because of the Trick Room. So if we didn't have Trick Room there, I would have been able to get off an extra hit. I may have been able to win. But it is what it is. And that was the first game. So what I learned was Tauros' set's probably not that good. You know, it's important to make sure I can take out their Sinistcha. So going into game 2 now, I wanted to adjust the leads, and I had this idea for another lead, which was Frostlass and Primarina to start in the front. And the idea there is that with both Frostlass and Primarina, I'll be threatening some damage into one of their Pokemon. Alright, so they lead Typhlosion and Tyranitar. Not a great lead, but not an awful lead for me. What I'm thinking is that, you know, Primarina in theory can threaten a lot of damage here. It would be nice if I had a way to have set up the rain. So maybe in retrospect having Rain Dance on Frostlass actually instead of Auroraville would have been better. But anyways, I know that they'll probably Mega Evolve, so what I can do is I can go for a Weather Ball into the Tyranitar slot, or not, into the Typhlosion. I can go for Weather Ball into Typhlosion, and it'll be a Rock-type move, so that should do super effective damage. And then with Primarina, I was thinking I would just protect to block a Throat Chop. I probably should have just used a Water move here. I mean, I have Surf, so I could have potentially just gone for Surf there. Go for this Weather Ball here. And unfortunately doesn't pick up the KO. So I block the Throat Chop, and then they go for Knockoff. And it actually gets the KO this time because the snow's not up, so I don't have the defense boost. And so my Mega goes down. Not a great start to the game. So I go for Protect there, thinking I can just get a KO with Surf here. That was probably a mistake. I think I should have tried to be a little bit more offensive there. So they go for a Protect, so I'm not able to get the KO on the Typhlosion. Does a good amount of damage to Tyranitar though. And they get that Thunder Punch off. So it's unfortunate I brought Tauros, you know, to try to get the Intimidates down onto Tyranitar. and my idea is that it would help keep Primarina alive. But this game I decided not to bring Tauros, and then last game I never actually got the Intimidate down on the Tyranitar. So I was thinking about going for the Pollen Puff to heal up Primarina. I don't think that would have been a bad option here. We get the Flamethrower off. So this was another mistake with my set, I think. I don't think Surf is the right option for a coverage move. There's probably some other water move I should run. Like, I could have just used like a single target water move. Like, I don't know if Primarina gets Scald, but that would have been fine. It has a chance to burn, which is pretty nice against their team. I don't know if they get Muddy Water. There was definitely a better option there instead of Surf, which is a bit of a silly move. So now I'm feeling like I pretty much have lost this match just because even though Primarina is good, with the sand up, you know, it'll be really hard, especially since Primarina has such a small amount of health now. So I guess I'll just talk through my thoughts on the match, since pretty much winding down at this point. There isn't really too much I can do. I definitely brought a bit of a silly set. I think my preparation, I think I overcooked a little. And by that I mean I was I think if I just brought a simpler game plan, you know, had a more standard set, would have worked better. Definitely brought some silly sets this week. Which is fine. I had fun with it. I'm glad I really wanted to get off that Parish Song Whirlpool setup. I don't think it was necessarily that good though. I think it's just too slow for this. So anyways, good games to Theo. I think we saw some pretty cool tech. We had all 4 forms of weather in one game, which is fun. So yeah. Alright, so not the way I wanted to end the season, but, you know, I got 2nd place in the regular season, not a bad accomplishment, and I made it to the semifinals. So, of course, it's fortunate to end the season with a couple of losses in a row, actually, but that's okay. So I had a lot of fun over the last couple of months playing Pokemon. I'd say my favorite part of Draft League each week was trying to prepare and come up with some wacky strategies, and I think every week I ended up doing that. This week, maybe I took it a little bit too far, but that's okay. In terms of my team as a whole, I would say that Meowscarada, Talonflame, and Primarina are really strong. If I were to do a Draft League again, I definitely would be considering those 3 for sure. I think Meowscarada especially was probably undervalued in terms of the amount of points they cost. And Meowscarada was extremely strong and very versatile with their ability, the Proteon ability. There's also a couple weeks where I was relying on Primarina to deal damage, and then Talonflame is just such a good support Pokemon. I think Frostlass is probably my favorite Mega Evolution, even though I hadn't used Frostlass at all before this game. You know, I caught them in Pokemon ZA, but I just was doing that to complete the Pokedex essentially. It's just a bit tricky sometimes with the matchups in Draft League. Like Tyranitar was very difficult. In the first week, I had some trouble with the Hisui and Gudra. And the problem is that my other Mega Evolution of Meowstic doesn't necessarily cover those weaknesses against Steel and Dark. So probably wanted to draft a different 2nd Mega Evolution potentially. But I did love having the Prankster ability. That's really fun. So no real complaints about my team. There's definitely ways to improve upon it, but it was a fun team to use throughout the past couple months. That being said, I am happy that I won't have to worry about Draft League anymore. Even though it was fun, it also took up a lot of time. Whenever I thought about playing Pokemon, I always was thinking that I should probably be doing it for Draft League. So even on ladder, whenever I've been playing Pokemon, I've been using my Draft League team. And I'm excited to try out some different Pokemon, especially with the new ones that have been released, and to see if I can actually climb up the ladder a little bit. I think as a goal that I'll be working towards, probably just to see if I can get to Master Ball level 3. I think that's a fun and achievable goal. I also might want to get back into speedrunning and playing some other games, now that I'll have some extra free time instead of worrying about Draft League. That being said, if you are interested in more Draft League, definitely check out Salty Dolphin. Salty's running a whole other set of Draft Leagues for the new regulation. Also, just want to give another shout out just in general to Salty for organizing this league. If you're interested, I'll probably still try to upload some more content on this channel. It might be some more Pokemon content, might get back into speedrunning a bit. I don't know if I'd upload those, usually I just have those unlisted. So it was a great season, thank you to all my opponents, thank you to Salty. I'll see you next time.